Welcome, listeners and viewers. Welcome to season 3 of A Cuppa with a Conversationalist. My name is Con, and I am the conversationalist. And yes, I've still got my latte. And despite many requests from people to not continue with the program, I've declined, and I'm still here and continue. I'm very honoured for the first episode of season 3 to have Dan Kuss and Sue Giacobbe with me. Sue and Dan are on a mission to help people and teams flourish at work with professional development programs that enable them to be more efficient, more effective, and successful. They believe that when you develop your individuals to strengthen your teams, your organization will flourish along with the individuals, specifically administrative teams who sometimes fall between the gaps when it comes to professional development. Drawing on their collective experience in the education, healthcare, and corporate sectors, they love to help people live an engaged, balanced, and motivated life where they do their best work. Please welcome Dan and Sue. How are we this morning?
Great.
Good.
Really good, Con.
Fantastic.
How are you?
Oh, look, absolutely super. Absolutely super. Guys, what I want to start with, first of all, is one at a time, obviously. You mentioned you've got education, health care, and corporate expertise. Where do each of you come from? So maybe start with you, Sue.
Yeah, so I had 15 years in the education system. I worked in schools, and the areas I worked in was really community development. So I built teams in that area and worked with my teams to look after things like enrollments, marketing communications, philanthropy, alumni. So really building community. And as far as corporate and business, I've worked in real estate for 10 years. So I was in real estate sales for 10 years, ran my own restaurant, had my own product business. So, and then worked in healthcare in the aged care and the carer community sector. Yeah.
So you've got a very well-rounded background from an expertise point of view. Yeah. What about yourself, Dan?
Good question. So I've had a design and marketing business for a long time, probably 20 odd years, and that's where I carved my teeth in running my own business. And I had clients across all those sectors, so corporate, healthcare, small business, government, etc. And the conversations quickly went from sales and marketing to team, limiting beliefs, working with others, all those kind of things that tend to happen when people get comfortable talking about where they're at. And so I just shifted into the coaching space. And since then, I've done work with, again, government, education, corporates, coaching CEOs and stuff like that, which is an incredible privilege. So Sue and I were like, well, how do we bring those things together? I mean, we'll probably get to the story because we always...
Well, that was indeed my next question. And Dan, can you stop stealing my thunder, please?
Told you I was going to do that.
Stop taking over, Dan.
Otherwise, I'll cut you off. Sue, obviously, you and I, we have a connection between my partner and your cousin, which Adelaide is just such a small world.
Such a small world.
Indeed. So I know that, and Dan, I met you many years ago at an event that you actually spoke at, and you're quite impressive. What's the connection between you two? How did you two come together to form this superpower duo?
Ladies first.
Thank you. When I was in education, before I went into my coaching business, I was also part of an organisation that provided training for staff that were in the fields that I was in, running across those areas in schools, so admin teams. So professionals rather than the teaching staff. And that organisation used to run conferences and meetings, and Dan was invited to speak at one of those conferences. And Dan and I met through that conference, and we had a conversation one evening because Dan spoke at one of those conferences. And then we said, well, let's catch up and see where our synergies are. And we met up, we had a conversation. I said, look, this is an area that I'd really like to address, and what I'd like to create as a program and go into schools and provide professional development for administration teams, which they don't get it at the same level as do the academic teams. And Dan listened to the concept. He said, I love it. How do we make it happen? I'm like, oh, I like this. This is someone who's like ready, set, go. It was literally, this is great. How do we make it happen? And that was the beginning of this path that we've jumped on. So, yeah.
Dan, question to you. Obviously, you both have your separate businesses as well. I see the marketing. How do you keep the distinction or the separation between the two and say, okay, this is Sue and Dan, and this is Sue or Dan?
Yeah, it's a good question. And the easiest way to answer that is the niche and the specialization. So part of the beauty of us working together is that Sue does things that I can't do, and I do things that Sue can't do. And I'll put it in brackets yet, right? Because we can all learn anything.
Sure.
But she brings her part and I bring my part, but we still have our own practices on either side, knowing full well that quite often they become feeders into the Sue and Dan circus, because it's a niche that we do. We're very niche. It's pretty much secondary schools, private at the moment, and we only work with non-teaching staff. That when I talk to people about that niche, they're like, holy moly, that's the first time I've heard of it. So it's pretty easy, therefore, to have a distinction between what we do in each other's businesses.
Okay. So you obviously, we speak about organizations and we're looking at teams here. What, I guess, there's obviously lots of challenges, but typically are there, one or two main challenges that you see when you go into these organizations? And education, I guess, because predominantly you're working in an education space at the moment. What are some of the unique aspects that you see there, some of the challenges?
Sue?
In schools particularly, there are staff that might have been there 10, 15, 20 years. And unfortunately, they haven't had the level of professional development, if any, that other staff from the academic sector in the schools have. And there are a couple of reasons for that. One, teachers have to keep up their registration relevant, and so they have to keep on doing more study and accreditation and all of that, just to keep above things. So that's easier for them to go in and go, hey, I've got a conference I'm going to go to, sign here, done. Admin staff are also tied to the front desk or to day-to-day tasks, which they don't have a temp that can come in and relieve them while they go off and do professional development. And so unfortunately what that's meant is that the admin teams are not grown with the organisation in the same way that the academic staff are. And so as changes happen, it impacts the administration teams, but they're not grown in the same way. So that has left staff feeling not valued, not heard, not resilient, no leadership skills, no growth in that mindset area. And so it just leaves this them and us kind of feeling, and they feel not part of the whole journey as it's growing.
Okay. So Dan, given that you see this, I guess, them and us type mentality within the organizations, what are the signs that it is them and us? How's it manifesting itself within the organization, and how's it impacting
Communication and teamwork. So a lot of the work we do is around collaboration, not just within teams that are admin, leadership, marketing, etc., but sometimes with the teams that are also teaching staff. So to go deep into that is the lack of communication, which sometimes comes out of a dissatisfaction with being heard. You know, you sit in the corner and you do your work and it's like no one cares about me, and it can create a little bit of toxicity sometimes. So we often start with building up people's talents and strengths, and then teaching them how to communicate, teach them how to ask for what they want, teach them how to be more collaborative and have a teamwork approach instead of the wearing that us versus them kind of mentality, which Sue mentioned, because it spreads, right?
Okay.
And it's really I love it when we go in and the team members say, wow, I've never had, been in a school and I've never had any professional development and I've been here 15 years, or this is so refreshing because this is really about us, because it does speak to them and their roles and how they fit in the organization and how they can contribute. It also builds their own self-leadership skills, because you don't have to be in a leadership role to be a leader. You can be a leader within your own life and within your own role. And this is an area where it's like, this is, fabulous, because this gives us a whole other insight to our role, but also helping people that are put in managers' roles but haven't been given the upskilling or the assistance to transition from being a team member to a manager. And that's a big shift.
Yeah. Dan, we look at teams and irrespective, I draw many sporting analogies, being a sports nut, but the same challenges that we have on sporting teams, we have on professional teams in terms of in the workplace. There's always a gap between not only skill, but also they have different values. Not everyone on the same team is there for the same reason. When you're working with an organization, how do you identify that Dan and Sue have different values, but then how do you then deal with it in terms of them coming together and still working together as a team?
It's a really good question, and Sue and I are wondering, have you been to one of our workshops? Because
I was thinking you're reading our stuff.
we do a workshop called Values and Connection. So I heard this beautiful quote once from Gallup, and they said the workshop doesn't begin until the participant gets to speak. So if you make your whole workshop a monologue, people check out because they never get to participate. So in our Values and Connection workshop, we'll get them to explore their own values. What's important to them? Why is it important? And then we'll get them to look at the values of the school or the institution and then find connections. Because it's when you support the cause of the organization, the person, the religion, the business through common values, that's when you're on board. But if you go back to a sports analogy, if half the team is there to get paid and the other half there is to get in the grand final, it's not going to work, is it? Because the grand final players are going to do all the slack work that doesn't get done by the people that are there to get paid. So we try and help. You don't throw the baby out of the bathwater. We try and help those people that haven't found the value yet, as Stu would say, ignite the light within them. We help them identify their values and connect that to the mission of that institution. And look at our testimonials. They come back, people are like, wow, I never realized I had such a good connection to the school. And it's beautiful to see. It means that something's working, and that fulfills us.
And even to their own values, it's like, I thought I knew my values, but until I did this work and dug a bit deeper, I didn't realize, actually what my values are and what they mean to me, because we don't just find out what they are. We dig a bit deeper and go, okay, what does it really mean to you, and how does it show up in your life, and are you living your own values, let alone those within the organization?
Correct. Yeah. Invariably, there is a fly in the ointment. Invariably, and I how would I put this? With organizations, particularly government and education, there are challenges to either remove or have individuals select themselves in terms of moving on because they're not a cultural fit, whatever the reason. How do you deal with a team member that's just like, this is garbage? God, I'm wasting my time. I could be doing emails, my shopping list. I could be having an early minute to spend with my kids, and I'm listening to Batman and Robin here. How do you first of all get them back on board, because we understand that one member, the toxicity really does permeate and can be quite destructive. So what's your strategy or your approach with these individuals?
It's interesting because, and I think you do too, Dan, I believe that inherently people are good and want to do the right thing wherever they are. Stuff happens to them, and then there's a story that they create. And it's about actually listening to them and giving them the space to say what's really going on for them. A lot of the times it's fear of, being moved on. There are, in organizations, there's always these structural changes and people kind of get let go. So people become quite concerned about where are they sitting. And I was having a conversation with a group yesterday. We were doing a brainstorming session, and one of the gentlemen said, I just need to know, where do I stand in this organization now? Like with all of these shifts, I do not know. And so that, when it's not spoken, can present very toxic. And we're very fortunate because we're given that space to give those people the space to say, this is what the bugbear is for me. And, some will say, look, this has been going on forever. You might not be able to change it, but it's giving them that space first to say it.
And sorry, just to add to that, if you don't mind, Sue's much more patient than me. So that's why we make such a good duo, because really? I'll be like, okay, like it's not about an agenda. It's not about getting through all the slides. It's about letting people speak, right? And just to add to what Sue was saying, when you give people the opportunity to speak, they might not have ever had a chance to speak before. So once they get over that fear of, why do you want to know what I think?
Yeah.
Then they do open up, and it's about creating a safe space. Like, shut the doors, create a safe space. Everyone's here to help each other. We're not going to whisper, and there's no finger pointing. And this is why we do 6 and 12 module programs. Yeah, it's not a one-hit wonder, but you've got to earn people's respect and trust, and they open up. And by the end of the 6th module, people are really surprised about what can happen.
Because we're coaching them through that process in the meantime. So we're not just there to facilitate training. We also actually have that, ability to coach people through in the moment and put the workshop on hold for the moment to work with that person and then move on again. So that's,
Dan, do you find, I read a study recently when it came to fear of public speaking, and of the high percentage of people, 70 plus people, 2/3 of that group were female. So there's a higher percentage of females who have a fear or anxiety about speaking in public. So in your work, do you find that there is a higher ratio from a gender perspective with people who are whether they have where do I belong, like Sue mentioned before, that gentleman, with fears of what the future holds or things like that? Do you find there's a gender thing there?
So this is a question about gender and fear of security, or it's about public speaking?
No, not what I do. Don't try and take my thunder here, big fella.
No, I'm curious.
Focus on what you're doing.
You mentioned public speaking, man.
But what I was saying there is, the point that I was trying to make is, in what you guys do you find there's That's it. Thanks, Dan. It's been fun. Sue, we find, is there a gender imbalance in the work that you guys do with?
Well,
that's where I was heading with. Maybe I just overcomplicated the question.
So most of the staff in our workshops are female. It's the gender is balanced, particularly towards women that are working in the administration, finance positions, tuck shop position, uniform shop position. There are men in leadership, but some of the first workshops we did were with women in leadership as well. So there's definitely more women in our workshops. Are they concerned about the future? I think COVID's made everyone concerned of the future. So if you're asking someone, take half a day off, drop what you're doing, come to a workshop, they're going to be like, well, I might not be here next week. I don't care. Why are you making me do this? But if you persuade them with the potential benefits, then they'll come along for the ride.
Yeah. And as far as a gender thing, you were talking about the public speaking. In this arena, women find it more challenging to speak up and stand up for what they want, and having the boundaries and being assertive, because women are not taught that naturally, and they don't experience that in the same way that men do when they're growing up from, boyhood. So women are reluctant to speak their mind. They will hold on to more things and are more concerned about how that might appear. And I mean, I remember myself when I was in that phase of life, and somebody asked me, why can't you, why don't you feel comfortable? I'm like, because they'll think I'm a bitch. It was like literally that. And it was like, you have this stigma. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, Con. I just did.
There's no editing. I told you that at the beginning.
Awesome.
But it was because there's a stigma about also women speaking up can come across as if they're being that, whereas it's taken with men, it's taken for granted, like that's you just do, right?
Is just going off the subject of your work just for the moment as a discussion point very briefly, are you finding that is changing as society progresses? Are you finding we'll call it a cultural shift as such, Dan?
Yeah. Dan?
Yes, definitely. Straight into my mind became an amazing woman who helped me in my position at the university. She was my team leader, and she had it, edit this out, beaten into her, not physically, that she needed to be seen but not heard. So that has followed her through her whole life, and she second guesses herself all the time about, well, can I speak up? Can I stand up for what I think? Do I need to shut up? What am I going to get told to do? So again, it's not going to get fixed overnight, or not in a generation, but when you create the space for people to identify how they can naturally speak up, what are they passionate about, why are they here, what are their values, then they're more likely to step up and take a risk, if I can call it that.
And it does feel like a risk for a female, because even though the culture is shifting, what's embedded in us from very young age, the shift within us is the big challenge too. It's not just the culture shifting, but it's that mindset, those limiting beliefs, that conditioning that you've had from a young girl. So, and I see that a lot in my coaching with women.
So with, either one of you actually, in your introduction, you mentioned that a lot of your work is with admin teams because they've kind of almost the poor cousin, or they're left behind. How, given that has been the case and is the case still in so many organizations, how do you go to an organization and go, guys, you need to give these people some love? What's the, for the better word, what's the sell?
So
there's no real sell, because the good thing is that organizations, schools have seen it themselves, and it could be the timing has been just right for Dan and myself to enter into this area. It is something that when I was in schools was acknowledged, but they didn't know how to go about it. So as I said earlier, there are conferences, fabulous conferences already set up for the academic staff, but there wasn't a program running for admin teams and their managers, so team members and managers running that. The leader, the manager of a team could say, look, there's this conference that I want to send my team to. Can you sign off here? It wasn't that easy. We've made this easier because we have these programs. So when we go in and say, this is what we have, it's like spot on. This is what we needed. Thank you. And so it's just meeting a need that's already there.
And Con, as you know, it's not selling, it's helping, right? So all you need to do is ask the right questions.
Hence.
Yeah.
The inverted commas there, sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Whose sirens going off in the background? Are they coming after you, Dan, or are they coming
Dan.
after me?
The luxury of living next to a main road.
All good. Guys, so
Dan loves them.
Yeah. So the majority of your work, from again, our conversations are with schools. How does that then translate? How do you take what you do to create this team culture, this team building into organizations where you don't have almost an obvious divide with, as in schools, you've got, as you said, you've got the teachers and then you've got the admin staff. You go into an organization where there's, I don't know, majority of either admin or managerial type situations. How do you translate and transition your work into that?
Good question. So, I'm not passing it over. I'm trying to be a gentleman, and I'm like, okay, no, I'm going to take the reins here.
I'm not
going to hand it over to you. So,
I'll add on.
I get in trouble for starting to take over in her parts of our workshop. So I'm like, sit on your hands, man. Shut up.
Dan. I'm just curious. Is there something deeper in that? Maybe we can do some coaching here. Can I help you?
Yes, my therapist is going to be. That was actually my therapist in that ambulance. So there are challenges in every organisation. For some of them, it's about the retention is so good. They're so proud of the organisation they built. They want to add more value to their teams because we know that people will stay in an organisation where they love the work they do instead of get paid more for stuff they don't enjoy, right? So, I mean, right now people are jumping ship a little bit because of COVID, because of insecurity, but you'll stay somewhere if you love the people, the environment, the opportunities, the recognition, the feedback, and the opportunities for personal development. So all you need to do is ask questions again. Say, where do you wish you were doing more to serve your teams? Or where are the gaps? Or what do you stay awake at night about, concerned about? And sometimes it's leadership wanting to add more value. Sometimes it's leadership wanting to create a better divide between their role and the manager's role. Things like that.
And wherever there are people, there is a need to add value in the workplace, right? And to keep them well and to keep a healthy culture going. And it's interesting because these other organizations have now been either referred to us or come to us through LinkedIn because they see the work and they see that they can, use that in their own workplace. And it's not necessarily, like Dan was saying, just about things not working. It's like, how can we make them even better and greater than they already are? How can we just keep morale boosted, especially during COVID times? Yeah.
One of the interesting things that I had happened to me on Monday night, actually, I had a lady who's quite high up in a government department, and she was quite emotional at the end of the program, and she actually had made some significant inroads like her confidence and things like that. And we started chatting after everybody else had gone, and she said that she felt that she had regressed. I'm going, okay. So we had a chat about it, and ultimately what it boiled down to is that she had a greater awareness of what was going on. And so therefore, you know, the breakdown precedes the breakthrough. Do you find that as well? And if you do find it, how do you, like at the end of the program, you've gone, well, that's great, here we go. And somebody comes to you and says, well, that's great, you've now made me aware of all these things, I'm actually quite challenged and regressed. How do you approach and deal with that?
This is not like us, is it, Dan? We're like, again, it comes down to sitting down and having a chat with that person and identifying, you know, what does regressed mean for them? Where is the area that is overwhelming them? And where would they like to go with it? So it's about having the conversations. It's about asking the questions and helping people navigate through that. Because, and this is the amazing thing about, you know, coaching and working with people who ask you questions, is because they help you see what is unseen for the moment. It's already within them. All the answers are within them. It's just helping them navigate that in that process of questions and getting those aha moments and going, oh, okay, I can break this down in smaller chunks now. It's not all overwhelming and high. Yeah.
Dan?
Just, same as what Sue said, really, really good quality questions and sitting with someone. I think it's so easy. Okay, so I've got kids, and when we work with our children, it's so easy to go, all right, I need a result now. I'm going to use force or power to get you to do what you want to do. And they might be sitting there going, but I don't know how to process something. It's all right, it's time to go to bed, go to bed. But if you take the long route and you sit down with them and you go, okay, what's coming up for you? How can I help you? Where do you need to change something? And just give them, honor the space. I think if we don't have that space provided for us and we don't honor it, then we get into a habit of going, well, no one cares, no one's going to listen to me. So that's the beauty, like Sue said, about coaching. It's our job to listen and our job to ask really good quality questions to help that person find their own answer.
Yeah.
Guys, I've had so much fun this morning. It's we could talk for days, and I think there definitely needs to be episode 2 of the Sue and Dan show, guys. We'll definitely have all your links and tags and goodness knows on social media. Folks out there, if you're in that space, highly recommend Dan and Sue. Known them for some time, and their work and their care for their clients is second to none. Guys, it's been an absolute pleasure. Hope you have an absolute lovely day. And my name is Con. I am the Conversationalist. And until next time, bye for now.
Thank you. Bye.